Visual observation of the trench interior remains extremely rare due to the combined challenges of depth, pressure, and light absence. Cameras require illumination, but artificial lighting attracts organisms that interfere with accurate imaging. Furthermore, light does not travel well in this heavy, particulate-laden water. Despite these challenges, a few attempts at low-light imaging yielded results that, while inconclusive, added new layers to the mystery. In the first attempt, a probe lowered a camera encased in specialized pressure-resistant material toward an intermediate ledge within the trench. The camera captured faint movement near the edge of its light field. These movements generated shadows that appeared unusually large. The shadows did not match the behavior of fish or typical invertebrates. Instead, they moved in long, sweeping trajectories, as if belonging to structures that extended far beyond the visible zone. The camera malfunctioned soon after, likely due to a sudden pressure fluctuation caused by nearby water displacement. Later missions used thermal imaging, which detects temperature differences rather than light. While the trench is uniformly cold, living organisms sometimes produce slight thermal signatures through metabolic heat. The thermal cameras recorded faint ribbon-shaped signals drifting in slow arcs. These were not direct images, but rather gradients in the water caused by something warmer than its surroundings. The shapes ranged from thin lines several meters long to broad, undulating masses. Their origin remains unknown, but the persistence of the signals rules out simple turbulence. Another method attempted to map density changes using neutrally buoyant sensors. These sensors floated at set depths and measured variations in water density as large objects passed. Deep creatures with substantial mass can displace water and create subtle pressure waves. The sensors detected periodic shifts that could not be explained by internal waves or boundary currents. The intervals between events suggested that the organisms moved deliberately rather than being carried by environmental forces. Chemical sampling also revealed unexpected results. Water collected at various depths contained traces of unidentified organic polymers. These materials displayed structural complexity not seen in typical deep water ecosystems. The polymers seemed resistant to breakdown and could withstand extreme pressure without degrading. This resilience suggests that they may form part of protective layers or connective tissues belonging to unknown large organisms. Since similar compounds do not appear in known species, their presence strengthens the argument for unique trench-adapted life. Additional clues appeared in sediment collected near the trench floor. Some samples contained shallow grooves cut into the otherwise smooth layer of fine particles. These grooves ran parallel for long distances and maintained constant width. Geological processes rarely produce such symmetry. The grooves could be the result of contact from large organisms brushing against the sediment. If so, their scale indicates creatures with bodies long enough to reach across considerable portions of the trench floor. Perhaps the most telling evidence came from a specialized sonar imaging system capable of projecting three-dimensional shapes onto a digital grid. This system detected large, soft-edged forms moving at slow speeds. The forms lacked clear outlines. Instead, they appeared amorphous, as though composed of pliable biological material. Some displayed tentacle-like extensions that drifted behind the main mass. Others appeared more compact, but still larger than any known animal. The absence of hard boundaries leads to speculation that trench creatures may possess flexible outer layers suited to absorbing pressure rather than resisting it. Even with all these fragments, researchers cannot construct a complete image. Form without light remains an elusive concept. The creatures of the trench reveal themselves only through shadow, pressure, chemical trace, and sound. Their appearance, size, and structure remain partially hidden. Yet the patterns suggest that life in the deepest place on Earth may be far more varied, far more immense, and far more alien than previously imagined. The deepest trench on Earth is often portrayed as a desolate void. In truth, it is more accurately understood as a sealed ecosystem shaped by pressure, darkness, isolation, and time. If large organisms inhabit this realm, they have adapted to these conditions through evolutionary pathways unknown in surface biology. Their existence would redefine the boundaries of possible life on our planet. The trench environment fosters survival strategies that challenge conventional assumptions. Without sunlight, the ecosystem must rely on chemical energy sources. Bacteria capable of converting minerals into biological fuel form the base of this food web. These microbes colonize vents, fissures, and surfaces rich in elements released from the crust. Simple grazers feed on these microbial mats, followed by larger predators adapted to the cold and darkness. Each level grows increasingly specialized as depth increases. At extreme depths, food scarcity becomes the defining factor of life. Large organisms must either migrate widely in search of prey or evolve metabolic systems that conserve energy. Movement detected within the trench suggests long travel patterns rather than stationary feeding. This implies that the deep giants may patrol the entire length of the trench system. Their sheer size could assist in energy conservation, with slow, efficient movement allowing them to glide across vast distances while consuming minimal resources. Another possible strategy involves selective feeding on occasional large prey. The trench lies beneath migratory routes of whales and other sizable animals. While these species rarely descend to trench depths, dying individuals sometimes sink into abyssal troughs, providing sporadic feasts. Evidence from pressure sensors and acoustic signatures implies that something within the trench interacts with large carcasses. These interactions sometimes produce sudden waves of movement through surrounding layers, suggesting vigorous feeding events. The ecological influence of the unknown creatures extends beyond consumption. Their movements reshape sediment, alter current patterns, and affect the distribution of smaller organisms. In one study, a series of benthic recordings showed that microbial communities changed composition rapidly after large disturbances. This resembles the behavior of ecosystems influenced by apex predators on land, where the presence of a dominant species shapes the entire environment around it. The most profound implication concerns evolutionary isolation. If giant trench organisms evolved separately from surface life, their lineage could stretch back to ancient eras when conditions on Earth differed radically. They may represent remnants of a biological age long vanished elsewhere. Their adaptations to pressure, darkness, and chemical environments might offer clues to the origins of life itself. Some theories propose that life on early Earth began in deep environments similar to the modern trench. In this view, the creatures below may be living examples of a primordial blueprint. Yet the trench remains forbidden not by law, but by physics and fear. Exploration is limited by technology. Prolonged presence at extreme depth requires machinery that remains experimental. Every descent risks catastrophic failure. The unknowns create an atmosphere of caution. Natural hazards and unpredictable biological encounters prevent deeper observation. The trench resists intrusion. The mystery persists. The trench breathes slowly, stirs rarely, and speaks through subtle signals. It holds secrets that challenge the limits of scientific understanding. What lives within its lowest chambers may be larger than any known species, older than many continents, and more adapted to alien conditions than any creature on the surface. The deepest place on Earth remains a boundary between knowledge and speculation, between what is known and what remains hidden. Until technology advances enough to reveal its inhabitants in clear detail, the Forbidden Trench will continue to inspire awe. It stands as a reminder that Earth contains realms still beyond human reach, worlds that exist parallel to our own yet follow rules shaped by forces we can barely comprehend. In the absence of light, sound, or certainty, one truth remains. Something lives there, something vast, something ancient, and for now, it waits in the deepest place on Earth. The ocean contains landscapes as varied and complex as any found on land, yet they remain mostly unknown because sunlight cannot reach beyond narrow upper layers. Among these sunless regions lies an abyss so deep that traditional descriptions fail to capture its scale. This place is known in official geographic language as the deepest trench on Earth. Its depth surpasses the height of nearly every mountain on the planet if measured upside down. The pressure at the bottom rises to levels that would crush modern submarines within seconds without exceptional reinforcement. The world above breathes air, watches weather, and witnesses seasonal cycles. But the environment within the trench is a realm where time appears slower and matter behaves differently. Decades of attempts to explore this trench have produced limited results. Early probes failed due to mechanical stress that surpassed planning estimates. Later expeditions equipped with advanced materials descended farther than ever before. But even these missions could not fully penetrate the vertical labyrinth. The trench walls contain ridges, crevices, plateaus, and overhangs shaped by millions of years of tectonic force. Water within the trench remains near freezing, yet it carries minerals and chemical compounds released from the fractured crust. The combination of enormous pressure, low temperature, and chemical richness creates a habitat unlike any other discovered on Earth. Oceanographers long believed that life existed only in trace amounts at these depths. Bacteria supported by chemical reactions around hydrothermal sources were expected. Simple organisms sometimes appeared during sampling. But beyond these expected forms, very little was known. Some early reports mentioned unexpected vibrations detected by deep sensors, but these readings were attributed to settling sediment or movements within the plates. Officially, the trench remained a place of geological mystery rather than biological curiosity. Then, a series of acoustic studies introduced a new dimension to the mystery. Recording instruments placed along the upper and middle regions of the trench captured faint, rhythmic shifts in surrounding water. These shifts did not match known patterns generated by underwater landslides or tectonic rumbling. Instead, they displayed curvature in their profiles, suggesting the controlled motion of something large. When these signals were synchronized across multiple sensors, the magnitude of the effect pointed toward a singular moving object rather than dispersed environmental forces. Deep scattering layers, usually dominated by migrating plankton and fish, behaved strangely near the trench. Instead of rising and falling in predictable cycles, the layers stretched and contracted, indicating that something displaced them. The displacement did not resemble the influence of whales, which occasionally dive into deep regions before returning to higher levels. Instead, the changes tracked a shape that moved slowly but continuously. This shape never returned to shallower water. It remained within the trench as if it belonged to the heavier, darker waters near the bottom. Efforts to map the trench interior using sonar generated further anomalies. Certain regions simply refused to reflect sound. These pockets absorbed or deflected acoustic energy in ways that resembled organic surfaces rather than rock or sediment. The pockets moved slowly as if drifting through interior passages. The behavior differed from clouds of suspended material, which tend to disperse or dissipate. The persistent, smooth boundaries of these pockets raised the possibility of enormous living structures. The most striking finding arose when a high-sensitivity sensor detected a low-frequency resonance that lasted for several minutes. The resonance followed a pattern repeated twice over 24 hours and then vanished. Scientists initially classified it as tectonic music, a poetic term for vibrations transmitted through rock. Later analysis revealed subtle harmonics that suggested biological influence. No known species can produce such deep and sustained resonance at this pressure. If it came from a living organism, that organism would require a mass far greater than anything previously documented at extreme depth. Thus, the trench transitioned from a purely geological enigma into a biological puzzle. What might live within the deepest place on Earth remained unanswered, but the clues pointed toward forms of life far more complex and far larger than formerly imagined. The descent into the hidden world had only begun. The next phase of investigation revolved around sound. In the upper ocean, many creatures use sound as a method of communication or navigation, especially whales whose low-frequency calls travel vast distances. But the abyss beneath the trench presents conditions so extreme that traditional acoustic models become unreliable. Sound travels faster under immense pressure, and reflections behave differently around jagged geological features. This makes the trench an ideal environment for strange acoustic effects. Yet some sounds recorded there do not fit the expected physical behavior of any known phenomenon. Researchers deployed an array of deep hydrophones that remained in place for months at a time. Their recordings revealed a recurring set of signals that did not resemble the earlier resonance described in the first chapter. These signals possess structure similar to communication patterns observed in social animals, but they appeared slower and more drawn out, as though produced by a creature whose size imposed slower physical rhythms. The frequencies fell below the perceptual range of most marine species, suggesting that the intended recipient would be comparably massive or adapted to low-frequency channels. The signals did not repeat with exact precision. Instead, they displayed natural variation within a recognizable framework. This is one hallmark of biological origin. Random geophysical processes lack this type of variation, while artificial noise created by human equipment tends to follow strict mechanical regularity. The trench signals behaved like a complex language of pulses and tremors shaped by the environment but clearly modulated. The possibility that one or more unknown organisms produced these patterns became increasingly plausible. Meanwhile, pressure-sensitive platforms stationed along the trench lips detected periodic shifts in vertical water movement. These shifts originated far below and rose slowly toward the upper layers. The most likely explanation involves massive organisms stirring entire columns of water as they move through confined spaces. No known species has the body mass to generate such powerful vertical disturbance under these conditions. This means that something living within the trench possesses scale beyond ordinary imagination. Acoustic mapping revealed moving zones of silence where echoes simply vanished. These zones traveled in coordinated patterns. Their boundaries maintained smooth curves, indicative of flexible living surfaces rather than jagged rock. The silent zones were not small. Some extended dozens of meters, perhaps hundreds. When multiple zones appeared, they often moved in parallel, implying either a group of enormous organisms or a single organism with multiple structures or appendages. Without visual confirmation, the distinction remained unclear. One particular phenomenon attracted attention. On multiple occasions, hydrophones recorded sudden drops in ambient noise followed by a low fluttering pulse. This sequence occurred near regions where chemical sensors detected faint traces of organic compounds that do not belong to surface organisms. These compounds appear to originate from deep metabolic processes. Their presence suggests that the trench harbors life forms that rely on chemical energy sources, possibly involving adaptations similar to those found near hydrothermal vents, but on a scale far greater. Other clues came from the behavior of deep-water crustaceans near mid-depth zones. These animals sometimes exhibited abrupt clustering patterns that resembled alarm responses. They moved upward or laterally in unison as though avoiding something. The movements were not random. They formed waves of migration that spread along ridges at the upper boundary of the trench. This shows that whatever lives below influences the ecology above it. Large predators can shape entire ecosystems simply by their presence, and the patterns here indicate a powerful force at work. As the volume of data increased, clarity did not follow. The signals remained ambiguous, the silent zones remained mysterious, and no direct sighting confirmed the biological hypothesis. Yet the trench continued to speak in its own way. Its acoustic language hinted at the existence of something immense, possibly ancient, and wholly adapted to environments beyond the reach of common species. The abyss was communicating. Humanity could only listen. We upload new videos every single day, so make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's next. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, it really helps the channel grow. Tell us in the comments what you'd like to see next. Your ideas might be in our next upload. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of our community. Stay tuned, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.